Unspoken Issues.
Okay, we're getting ready to jump into this second part of our discussion on Wonder Woman, the Artemis Saga. If you haven't had a chance to listen to part one, you should be able to find that pretty easily, as it aired a couple days ago, right here on the Source Material Comics podcast feed. All right, without further ado, here we go. Wonder Woman, the Artemis Saga, part 2. All right, well, in issue number 94, a series of events unfold across different locations. In Florida, a prisoner by the name of Jade, which I think this is Cheshire, is that correct?
It's it's Cheshire.
Cheshire.
I don't know why they're called. I guess it's because she's always dressed in green.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, that's her real name, right? Isn't her real name?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about her except that she had Roy Harper's baby and she fought the Teen Titans a lot. I've never...
Well, she gets a means to escape from the widow. Meanwhile, in Rhode Island, Mrs. Saga attempts to use a portal to bolster her mob army. Yes, she's trying to bring in people from, monsters, maybe. I don't know. She's bringing in extra-dimensional help, I guess you'd say. And in Boston, Diana deals with a stalker. We talked about that earlier before returning to her agency. I don't know if they've got it. Did they ever name the detection agency at all? Detective agency?
I know what they didn't name it. Yeah, her real name is Jade Nguyen.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, she returns to the detective agency, and she's only to be confronted by Polly Longo, seeking protection. During the altercation, Diana fights off some female assassins. Yes, that's right. Some people show up to go ahead and assassinate Polly right there. And she ends up facing Cheshire.
Hard to blame him. He sucks.
Poison Ivy shows up. Diana ends up getting scratched. She falls or gets out of there and ends up going into an alleyway where she encounters Cheetah. She becomes unconscious, then wakes up, and the next thing she knows, she's a prisoner of Cheetah, Ivy, Cheshire, and Juliana Saga, who is the person behind all this. Now, it isn't like they've took her prisoner to do anything bad to her. It's more along the lines of like, hey, let's see if we can get some common ground here, because Saga is in this war with Longo, and I think she's looking for any advantage that she can get. Now, meanwhile, Artemis is off. She's facing challenges in New York, contending with, man, did I fall for this one, the chauvinist.
You did. I didn't say anything in the group chat.
I know you guys didn't.
Well, why would I? I wanted you to find out for yourself, little buddy.
The chauvinist shows up, which, oh my goodness, I don't know if there's more of an image panel in this book or not. There's quite a few, but when you see the chauvinist's face, my goodness, there's one dude in here. I think it's one of Saga's bodyguards. It's Moat or Jeff, which is hilarious, by the way. One of them looks like Pitt. And I was the facial.
Yeah, those guys are cybernated shock troops if I've ever seen them.
That was my thought, too. I got so excited. I was like, is this the origin of Pitt? Is this it? Is this it right here? Because, yeah, the guy, he looks exactly like Pitt. He's just got different skin color and a nose.
Okay.
Seriously.
Speaking of Pitt, real quick. We get way off. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
I want to say this. So I downloaded Pitt the other day.
Okay.
Very legal, I want to say.
Sure.
Legal.
Certificate of authenticity, if I remember correctly.
Right. Dale Keown himself gave me a fucking floppy disk with it on there. And I was skimming through them because there's like 20 issues and 2 specials. And when you skim them, every issue seems exactly the same. It looks exactly the same. I swear to God, it starts out with a kid at school. In the middle, there's Pitt chaining, got those chains, doing chains.
Oh, yeah.
Then some monster shows up. Big big fights. Back to the kid. Pitt on the last page looking confused. I swear to God, every fucking issue is like that. We'll cover some of it one day. That's Pitt for you, everyone. So we did not get a Pitt crossover here. But if we had him, I know how it would have went.
Oh, wow. So Diana manages to break free from her bonds and engages in some combat with Cheetah, eventually actually aiding her. As chaos ensues, Saga faces some new threats, one of which is the arrival of the Joker.
The clown prince of crime.
That's right. In the next issue, Joker offers some assistance to Saga. Diana and Cheetah confront some golems outside. All of a sudden, these stone golems start marching on Saga's mansion while all this is going down. So they've got to kind of try and fend these stone golems off. Longo collaborates with the white magician against Sazia. The white magician is the one behind these golems. So Longo's putting him up to these shenanigans. Yeah. Artemis, she encounters the exploiter. We went from the chauvinist and now we are meeting up with the exploiter who is attempting to liberate a sweatshop. The exploiter. Anyway, so
sweatshop labor isn't money.
Oh, no, but these damn villain names.
But the exploiter's very funny.
Diana confronts Sazia's bodyguards, leading to a showdown with Sazia herself, who actually is defending the Joker, which is kind of interesting.
Sort of.
Yeah.
She's trying to stay alive.
She's chained to either the floor or the desk, one or the other.
Maybe.
That's a nice stuff. In issue 97, we see the climax of the confrontation as the Joker's timer expires. Yes, that's right. The Joker reveals that he has a suicide vest and the timer on it expires, okay? Which ends up not exploding, but spraying some Joker venom facial cream all over Diana, paralyzing her.
Everywhere. Literally everywhere. It's very uncomfortable for everyone involved.
Right.
So,
especially Diana, because she wasn't paralyzed, right? Like
she couldn't move. She couldn't move.
That's the way I was understood things to be at this point.
Right. She could not move. All right. Now, while she's temporarily paralyzed here, Diana has a way of kind of leaving her body and going into some other realms. So it's kind of like, how would you call this the ethereal plane or the astral plane?
I think she goes to Olympus, right?
Yeah, okay. I was looking for a...
I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's kind of similar to like Doctor Strange's astral self, except she can only commune with gods with it, and he can do all kinds of stuff. Just mostly float around and be like, "Oh, I wish I could do something." Then he can go anywhere or whatever. My favorite thing about his astral self is the Hulk can see it.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, he can. Yeah. That's right.
Which is so funny. Yeah, the Hulk's like, what's the magician doing here? He's like, he can see me. He should be on the side of me. Like, Doctor Strange goes fucking nuts.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I always like that aspect of why do those two have so many adventures together? It's because the Hulk, when he's the Hulk, he's actually a lot more in tune with things that people give him credit for. The problem is people are always shooting at him, and Banner's a crazy person. So when the Hulk is just left to his own devices, he's actually a lot more introspective than anyone gives him credit for.
Mostly wants to eat peanut butter sandwiches and sit under trees.
He literally does not want to be involved in any of the stuff he has to be involved with. And every time he has to turn back to Banner, he's like, oh, God, please, no, I don't want to do this.
But the other reason they naturally fit, oh, my God, it's a wizard and a monster.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Plus, they both kind of look at him when Submariner shows up, and it's like, this guy's got to calm down, right? It's like, oh, yeah, no, I got anger problems, but that guy's got to calm down.
Right. And the prince. It's a fairy tale, right? The wizard, the monster, and the prince.
Exactly. There you go. We rebooted the Defenders. Marvel, if you're listening, we rebooted the Defenders for you.
There it is. So Diana leaves and goes and visits Pan in her head while she's paralyzed.
This was crazy, right? Does anyone else like? I read this twice. I was like, what the hell is happening here? She phases out. Dean's right. She goes to mythology land. She goes to Olympus. She goes to Pan. She's like, oh, you are the mythological antecedent of the Joker. Could you walk me through this? And he's like, you got to dance, Wonder Woman. And then she comes back, wipes the Joker goo off her face, and continues to be a superheroine. Like, this.
But now she knows all the jokes. Now she knows the secret.
Right.
Remember when we did Rock of Ages?
Yeah,
this is her version of Martian Manhunter making himself crazy.
Yeah.
That was so uncomfortable, by the way, because they're making these really bad,
dumb jokes,
dumb men versus women, and I was just like, why are we doing this?
There is a full page of her dancing, and you're just like, what is going on here? You do have to kind of try and make a bit of a stretch. It's not they do kind of lay it out there. Hey, I want to be crazy. Teach me how to be crazy.
I like that, though, because again, I go back to this. That's something no other character can do, right? And this is something that's unique to her. I love the idea that when she gets really, really stuck in a situation, it's like, all right, I don't just have to rely on the powers that I have. I am the continuation of ancient myth. So I can go to them and I can ask for help. But maybe asking for Zeus's help isn't the best situation. That's going to be more trouble than it's worth. But I'm fighting.
Absolutely.
Exactly. I'm fighting the embodiment of chaos and craziness and everything else. Well, it's like, yeah, but I know the original person for that, of where that comes from. So I thought that was really interesting. I'd actually like to see more of that. That's something that the aforementioned Glory and Promethea do a lot. So I thought that was great. It was just in this situation, it was like, this is insane. This comic just darts off for random little side quests and comes back. I've never met the man, but if I ever meet Bill Loebs, I'm going to be like, did you just write this stream of consciousness? Walk me through this. What was the process?
No, right. Honestly, I was going to say this at the end, but I'll just say it now because you brought it up. Has a JRPG feel. Everything is going to wind up coming back together. You don't there's not necessarily a linear path to get to this ending that you're gonna see. In Final Fantasy VII, you don't have to go to Wutai at all. And you can go to Wutai in a certain order, but it's better if you do. But if you don't, it doesn't matter. You don't have to get youth. There's all kinds of stuff. And I think that's what this has this kind of feel. I like the dancing, though, because Pan is also a god of frivolity and not debauchery and stuff, not necessarily terrible, horrible stuff, but just letting yourself go and be in the moment. Do what?
Spontaneity.
Yeah. So I kind of like that too. As far as you loosen up, you have a good time. And then when you come back, you know all the jokes, and the joker's mad at you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So she's able to break free, and she engages in what I call a reckless fight with the Joker. She is at one point she grabs a electrical she calls it electrical socket. It's a light that's hanging above, but in order to electrocute herself and the Joker at the same time and also turn the lights out.
But again, that's what you do to beat the Joker. Honestly, right. Batman beats the Joker because he's batshit crazy too, pun intended. If you're going to beat listen, there are honestly only two ways to beat the Joker. You get as crazy as he is so you can see how this is going to work. Or you do what Frank Castle was going to fucking do in Punisher Batman and just put a bullet in it and be done with it.
It's true. Now, Longo, by the way, Paulie Longo's making these big plans to try and send out some assassins, I think, to kill the Joker. But unfortunately, that all falls apart as they all die shortly after the meeting is held.
Because he Jokerized them all.
They all got Joker venomed. Now, Cheetah.
Can you imagine if you're Boston, though, right? Gotham City deals with Joker every day, all the time. But you're Boston is like, listen, guys, the Joker's. You're like, God damn it. Gotham City has a special victims unit, like Law and Order, the Joker show, right?
Yeah.
Just shit about the Joker. Boston, they're like, don't we normally? Oh man, where's Dr. Psycho? Isn't that who we normally deal with?
I got a feeling that if the Joker showed up in Boston and set up and did his usual shtick, he'd eventually be like, you know what? This place is terrible. I can't do this anymore. I truly hate these people in the place they live in. And he would just leave. Like they would.
How you felt about Boston?
They would out misery him, and eventually he would just get on the Amtrak or whatever and go back south to Gotham, and he'd be like, listen, Gotham may be the worst place to live in the world, but it is home. Boston is truly hell. So
well, outside of this, we got this crazy stuff that's going on here in this apartment or wherever they were at. The White Magician shows up, and he plans on actually teleporting everybody inside, I believe, at least Diana for sure, into some kind of hellish realm. But Cheetah shows up and intervenes, and he miscasts the spell, and they both disappear. So they're gone now. But soon after, Sazia's apartment explodes. This building explodes, and we don't know. Is she going to make it out? We don't know. Elsewhere, Artemis confronts Involute the Conqueror. That's right. We have a new villain here for Artemis to face, which I think this is a situation where they're down by the rainforest, and there was a bunch of massacred village people. Anyway,
people, yeah. When you say massacred village people, it makes people think of the folks who sang YMCA, right? You make it sound like somebody just shot the cop.
My bad. Yeah, there's a big fight between Artemis and Involute.
They actually do a good job of talking about why the rainforest situation is so complicated.
It's complicated, right?
It shouldn't be. Honestly, what they've done is taken a simple truth. We need the rainforest to survive as a goddamn species, and they've turned it into a convoluted political maelstrom with all this stuff because we've invented money and dumb shit and loans and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, because of the constructs that we've made, it's not as simple as people would like to think.
Right. And Artemis's confrontation with Involute the Conqueror really gets kind of dark when she hits him with the lasso of truth, wraps him up in the lasso of truth, and he realizes all these people that he has killed and regrets it immediately, and then turns the gun on himself and kills himself right there. Pretty crazy. But that's the end of issue 97. That's the end of this section. So I just want to start out here real quick. I'm going to throw my big piece of these issues. And yes, I'm going to jump back to these villains because I felt as these villains were getting revealed, I immediately sent these guys a message as soon as I hit this dude calling himself the chauvinist, there to liberate the women of the women's shelter, I guess you would say. He was going to bring them all back into these poor guys who have missed their wives and were responsible for sending them there practically. But the chauvinist was there to reclaim what was theirs. And I was like, who the hell would pick that as a name? Even if you are a villain, you want to try and pull something off that sounds cool. The chauvinist does not sound cool. You do not sound cool calling yourself a chauvinist or the formal chauvinist. And then
it's one of those things in the 70s and 80s. The neo-Nazi problem was very distinct, and you could tell who these folks were. They had a very distinct look, skinhead look, leather jacket, these markings, usually SS, 88 tattoos, etc. Well, within the far right wing, there became this philosophy where they were like, we got to stop that. Now we're going to wear suits and ties and stuff because you want to blend in. You don't want people to immediately hear your name or look at you and be like, I don't want to hear any of that. You're the chauvinist. Most people, even terrible anti-feminist, misogynist people, both men and women, they wouldn't call themselves that. They would somehow say this is good. The only guy who ever did it, it makes you wonder, the brain from the Brotherhood of Evil, how fucking smart is he? Why would you call yourselves that? Magneto should have gotten a PR firm. Oh, I'm in charge of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Well, that's dumb, Magneto. Who's going to listen to you? Like, oh, I'm running for office. I'm in the kick your nuts party.
I always thought that was intentional. I always thought he was like, you know what? They're gonna attack us eventually, but if I come out here and I'm just in a cape and I got a bunch of child soldiers and I got a bunch of ugly mutants and we call ourselves the evil mutants, they're gonna give me a reason to give me the war I wanted. That was always my headcanon with Magneto.
No, I just think Stan Lee's dumb.
Oh my goodness.
That's good headcanon. Honestly, with the brain and the Brotherhood of Evil, I believe if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, they're like people, and I guess in the Marvel and DC universe too, they're entities that are like the embodiment of evil and people worship them. And I always thought the brain had this weird philosophical commitment to evil. So I did the headcanon for him, but not for Magneto. And like yours is perfectly applicable, to be honest. And it makes sense. I think it's bad PR, but you're right. That is PR. And bad PR is PR nonetheless.
Yeah, at the height of the 60s, the man wanted nothing more than to kill all humans. So give him a reason, right?
Magneto was right.
Woo, there it is.
He was. I remember being at work once and this guy was like, how do you mean he's right? What about those guys you killed in that submarine? I was like,
submarine?
I was like, you mean in that submarine? You mean in the submarine full of nuclear fucking missiles that they were going to launch at him? Oh yeah. They were going to launch at those to tickle him, and then they were going to have lunch. It was going to be pumpkin pie. Don't be fucking stupid. They were going to kill him. They had said they were going to kill him, so he killed them. What the fuck? What are you going to do? Jesus Christ, Magneto was right.
I got to be honest with you. There's very little argument for saying Magneto isn't right. If you go back to God Loves, Man Kills, if you can read that, and that is before the X-Men broke into the mainstream, if you can read that, that is the purest distillation of that character. If you can read that and come out thinking that guy doesn't make just a little bit of sense, I don't know if you're getting the full experience of reading these things.
Well, listen, when I say Magneto was right, I don't mean his actions are always appropriate or that everything always turns out right or he always means he was right. But his greater philosophical bend that people who were oppressed don't owe it to their oppressors to be super nice and, in fact, are entitled to do what they need to do to liberate themselves, I think is a fundamental tenet of freedom for all humans, mutant or otherwise.
What'd you think of these issues here, Dean? We got a lot of stuff.
Magneto was in them, right?
A lot of stuff happens here. We've got Diana running into Cheetah, Cheshire, Poison Ivy, and then, of course, Widow Sazia. And then we have the Joker popping up here. So we got a couple crazy things happening in these few issues. What's your thoughts?
Well, first off, I want to say that after this run, with 101, John Byrne will take over, and he's going to make a big show and a big loud noise that he's going to put Wonder Woman in the DC universe and actually going to be a part of things, not this separate little thing like it has been. Here's the fucking Joker. How much more DC Universe does it get? Here's Poison Ivy. Here's Cheshire. And Cheetah is a Wonder Woman villain, and I've always loved Cheetah since the Super Friends cartoon. For whatever reason, I'm like, this is it. This is my shit, right? That and Protectors. That's the big two. Cheetah and Protectors, right? I love that they were able to bring all these DC Universe villains in here, and it all feels very natural, and they don't detract from any of the subplots. Everything keeps moving along. Darry said earlier, it doesn't necessarily always seem to move along on the same train. It's like every town they get to a new train yard, and they'll switch the tracks. But at some point, this route will terminate. We'll be there at that time. But it definitely feels like that. I thought it was cool that Poison Ivy wanted to prune Wonder Woman.
Yes.
And had drawn
the dots.
Put the dots on her ready to go. I love Poison Ivy. This was a great interpretation of the character. I'm more in line with the eco green anarchist Poison Ivy, but certainly this was neat with her killing the rich guy at first, and then killing all those guards, which is just funny. She's kissed them all, and they all just wanted it.
Yeah, they did.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Cool to see Cheetah and Wonder Woman work together, and I don't want to spoil too much, but also you would think that, I don't know, like you're saying, this is very over the top with Artemis. And one of the things we're subtly seeing, and then we're blatantly seeing right here when she uses the lasso of truth on the involute, she doesn't really know how to be Wonder Woman. And people are fooling her and taking advantage of her. And even when she does Wonder Woman stuff, okay, she's the reason that guy died, because she didn't know how to effectively use the lasso of truth. And then earlier when she beat up the chauvinists, that one guy came out and shot the lady, and she had just chastised her and been like, you weak bitch.
Yeah.
You would have been better if you had died, and your kids would have seen some courage. And then the lady jumps in front of the bullet, and it was meant for Artemis. She's like, I didn't want you to think I was weak.
Right.
And Artemis is like, wow, there apparently may be a little more to being Wonder Woman than I thought, but she also can't see that. She's not piecing it together, and I think it's neat to see the character grow in that way. It's a perfect middle of a story. It's also cool to see something subtly referenced where the Joker's like, listen, the Batman, like it's Asbats down there in Gotham now. And he's like, that guy is crazy. I got to get out of there for a little bit. And you had mentioned the 90s thing, right? Where she's like, oh, you're chained to the desk.
Yes. Yes.
I think it's because the Joker was listening.
Okay. All right.
And she was just trying to play it off and be super cool because she wanted to live, because the Joker usually kills around 88%, 93% of the people he meets.
Yeah. It's not really spelled out there, but you're right. Most likely that's what's going on. But I mean, you could look at it as, because she shows up, or the Joker shows up, and he's like, how about you work with me or I kill you? Oh, okay, I'll work with you. And then all of a sudden she's at wherever this building is, and
well, he doesn't really mean work with me.
Yeah, he's going to
kill her at some point.
Yeah.
But those are primarily my thoughts there.
All right, Darry, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm happy you brought up the Killing Joke, because the cover to 96 is just unbelievably gorgeous. It's got the Joker in full form. It's by Brian Boland, artist of the Killing Joke. And I don't know if that was the reason the Joker was brought in, but I'm happy we got it, because both he and Deodato draw just absolutely gorgeous versions of that character. So thank you. Thank you for that. I had a question for you guys. Why does Wonder Woman adopt what is often referred to as the biker costume? Because if I read this and all I could see was she decides she can't dress as Wonder Woman anymore, and then in the next scene she is dressed in this thing that is just like short pants and a bra. And then two of her friends say something like, oh, we did the finishing touches on your costume. And there's some weird reference to Steve Trevor's mother that I didn't have the energy to look up. But I was very confused. I was like, do we ever know why she adopts this radically different costume?
Yeah, for sure. The real reason is what they say, and it's hastily done. You got a new costume. We hooked this up for you. Where you going?
Yeah, okay.
But the meta reason is Vampirella.
Very good. Okay,
I think the meta reason is that we were in the middle of the we're in the middle of the bad girls craze right now. Lady Pendragon, Glory, and I think that this was not too far away from a lot of female characters changing their costumes to be more scantily clad, and a lot more scantily clad characters just showing up out of nowhere. We'll eventually talk about some of these things at some point, probably do Lady Death sometime toward the end of this year or beginning of next year, her first miniseries. But I do think that this is a direct response to the bad girls, whether it's because they wanted to make more money or because it's what DeFalco was doing with Fantastic Four, where it was supposed to be subtle satire. I don't know, but I would bet dollars to donuts it has to do with the bad girls craze, whether it's A or B there.
I love that she has a tiny little jacket for no reason. I truly...
in Boston.
Yeah. I thought that was great. I thought it was such an arbitrary choice, but I love it. I also
but everybody had jackets in the 90s. Like,
well, that's my point. That's my point, right? It starts with Morrison on Animal Man, where he's like, I need somewhere to hold my stuff. And then suddenly all the X-Men are wearing it. All the Avengers are wearing it. Everyone had this jacket going on. So I think it's a really good representation of the time. And on the cover, Brian Boland tries to make it practical, right? He tries to make these things look like straps and everything's being held in place. So again, it's not bad. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss something, because a lot of the other stuff is explained. That just seems to come out of nowhere.
It's hastily explained, but you have to just accept it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Again, I'm not fighting it. I showed up.
You are.
To appreciate this stuff for what it is. So I went past that.
I'm sorry Ben Reilly isn't in it, Darry. Sorry, there's no Scarlet Spider here for you. I don't need the Punisher to be in it. He's in my heart.
It's true. It's true. What is this? 1995? Yeah, that's peak, right? Yeah, across the street, he might actually even be Sensational Spider-Man at this point. I don't even know. Anyway, I really enjoyed these issues because, as Dean mentioned, I like seeing new Wonder Woman interact with the larger DCU. I thought the rendition of Poison Ivy here was great. I also prefer the eco-activist version of the character, but I do love this femme fatale coming in, killing everyone. One of the issues opens and she just murders this husband that she's been milking for money. Yeah. I thought that was great. I like seeing a really unrepentant villain, even though we know that she will have her face turn when Harley gets introduced.
Have you seen her in Suicide Squad?
The
Poison Ivy, like in the comic books.
Oh, in the Ostrander run.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where she has to leave that country because she's been milking it dry because that's so classic Poison Ivy. Before she's like, you know what, I ought to save the planet.
Yeah, that's what this felt like. This felt like Bill Loebs or someone read the Ostrander run and was like, oh man, Poison Ivy. I want to use that character. I want to do something with her, because again, before the Batman animated series and before Harley Quinn and everything else, she didn't have as many appearances as you might think she actually did. So I thought she was really well used here. I thought she was a great foil for Wonder Woman or Diana or whatever as well. Diana has kind of a villain called Dr. Poison who does similar things. She was actually the villain in the first film, but I thought Poison Ivy was a really good rogue.
Yeah, they should interact more. That's a really good, because honestly, on some level, they don't disagree.
They don't disagree. Obviously, once she does her face turn, you could absolutely see being like, well, I agree with you like 40% of the way.
Poison Ivy doesn't like men. Poison Ivy thinks that men are ruining the planet. Poison Ivy thinks that men are destroying the environment. Three things that Wonder Woman is at least somewhat in agreement with. I don't think she doesn't hate men. She's not a misandrous like Poison Ivy can be. Yeah. Although Kite Man, right, in the cartoon, like
in the cartoon,
they had a good relationship for sure. She's like, yes, indeed, men are ruining a lot of the things, other things, the literal ecosphere. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you there. Let's try and kill fewer people.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things where when the hero and villain,
not necessarily know people.
Right. Listen, that's what Wonder Woman gets chastised for in this entire arc, right? Her mother is constantly, all the other family secrets that come to light aside, she's chastising her for like, what have you done, right? What have you actually done? You have the power of the gods. You have responsibility. You have all of our heritage. You were trained by the very best. What have you done? You went to man's world. You work at a fast food restaurant. You help people where you can. You almost destroyed this city of Boston. What have you actually done? You helped the Justice League do things.
Well, in your eyes, that would be something she did, right? Like, you destroyed the city of Boston. I'll give you that.
I would get a Wonder Woman tattoo if her sole accomplishment was destroying the city of Boston. I think that's fair. But I think that's a good argument to have, because in some level, Diana's like, yeah, you know what? I got distracted by a lot of stuff, and I had friends, and I had a social life for the first time with people who aren't immortal demigoddesses. So,
well, let's also point this out, though. So if we take the continuity here, first off, Hippolyta's misconstruing everything because she wants to avoid the vision that she had of Wonder Woman dying. But in the first 60 issues, George Perez is doing hardcore mythology stuff. So every time Wonder Woman's trying to goddamn do something, the gods are like, we need you to do this. Come and do this. Why don't you work on this? You got to get back to Paradise Island. Zeus needs you. Oh, it's the War of the Gods. So fuck you. So you're mad at me because I didn't get things done because you needed me to do other things? Fuck you, Mom.
All right. So Artemis shows up at the detective agency. Diana she survived, by the way. I think Sazia ends up having a run-in with Longo. Longo tries to run her over, but she gets the better of him by exploding his car. So the war has been won by Juliana Sazio. Yeah.
Honestly, if you're going to get the better of somebody, there's not many better ways to do it than blow up their goddamn car.
She blew it up. That's right.
Yeah, ask the IRA.
Artemis boasts of her accomplishments. She shows up at the detective agency. She's like, hey, Diana, look, what have you done? Here's what I've done. And she starts bragging about everything that she's done. And she also says, you know what? I'm going to clean up. Yeah, I'm going to clean up Boston while I'm at it. So I'm tired of your stinky little town. Darry's like sitting there. He's like, go, Artemis.
I'm telling you, I bought Requiem off the rack is all I'm saying. Right. I bought it off the rack.
But it's like a teenager, right? Like you said earlier, Darry, she's a teenager. When you get your first job and you're like, that thing's figured out. I'm paying my bills. You're not paying any bills. You're buying Milky Way candy bars and Marilyn Manson shirts.
I'm telling you, the character makes a lot of sense. Wonder Woman is presented as this like level-headed adult. Artemis comes in. She's got all the high-minded ideals. She's got no experience outside of the world. Unlike being raised by the immortal, peace-loving people, she was raised by a bunch of warriors. It's a good dichotomy. The main conflict here is between Diana and Artemis, and really it's about, how can the mantle of Wonder Woman be best used to help the most people? And they're both wrong. No one comes out of this thing looking particularly great.
Do you remember when they rebooted the Teen Titans towards the new Titans towards the very end, and they put Damage and Supergirl and Green Lantern in it?
Kyle, right?
Yeah, Kyle.
Yeah, vaguely. Yeah,
they should have put Artemis in that.
They should have put Artemis in there.
Artemis belongs there. Would have belonged more there at this time than like the Matrix Supergirl, who had lots of adventures. What do we need this shit for?
Yeah, I never understood. I was very surprised when I read this, and I'm sure Jesse's going to get to this in the synopsis. We keep interrupting, but Artemis.
But Jesse loves it. Look at him.
He does. He loves it.
That's why I do this show, just so I can hear you guys talk.
Yeah, we're babbling about complete and utter nonsense.
If he wanted a show to just be synopses, he didn't need to invite us to do shit.
I got AI for that.
He's got AI for that.
I didn't have to fucking say anything.
Absolutely none. But I was actually surprised that Artemis dies in this freaking thing, because I knew she had her miniseries and I knew she had a bunch of other stuff. So I was shocked when she actually dies at the end of this. And I know it's kind of like, well, we got to motivate Diana to get back in the saddle, so to speak. But at the same time, yeah, it's kind of like a waste.
John Byrne doesn't mention shit about any of this. I skimmed the next 3 issues, and none of this comes up. You guys over there smiling, punching Darkseid.
Do you guys remember when John Byrne took over Doom Patrol and he decided to ignore all of the Grant Morrison and Rachel Pollack run, and he was just like, none of that happened. I didn't like any of that stuff. I'm going back to
the same time saying it was all canonical, but then not addressing any of it.
In any way. It could have been a show the characters watched on TV for all he referenced it. So,
right.
Sorry, Jesse.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So, yeah, she says she's going to clean up Boston, and first stop is Julie Anastasia. That's who she's going to go after. She's going to clean that up first. Yeah. Diana begins to investigate a corporation while Artemis confronts Sasia's mansion and narrowly escapes an explosion.
That's not the only thing she escapes. Can we talk about these very weird tendril security measures that are in this thing?
She bought some Doc Ock arms.
Oh man, this made me incredibly uncomfortable. This thing goes on.
I want to do something wild.
This goes on for 2.5 pages, and it is wow. These comics were directed at kids, right? At
least 13-year-olds and up or whatever.
I guess that's.
I didn't even think about how this was quasi-tentacle porn until you just mentioned it. I was like, the hero's trapped, and here's the villain. Yeah, she's got. I think I was just distracted by how they're Doc Ock arms.
No, look at page.
Oh, no, you're right. I don't have to look at anything. I remember now. My sweet, innocent mind just did not think about this.
No, my mind is filthy. It's right in the gutter. But
right. That's why the only Wonder Woman you can talk about is that early shit.
Right, exactly. This has got a very Molten Marston feel, because that whole thing back in the Golden Age, to go on yet another tangent, was when an Amazon is bound by a man, they lose their power, right? Now, in this case, a woman owns the house, and maybe it's not the same thing, but it's the same idea of like, no, we have to restrict, and you have to be comfortable with the restriction and all this other crazy nonsense. Though I don't know if that's the case here, because I don't know. There's just like really phallic-looking things protruding in an uncomfortable direction.
I had not thought about it somehow, and bless my sweet little innocent heart.
Made me very uncomfortable.
Darry, when you go back, and I did pull up the page, and I'm looking at it, and look, there is when she first gets wrapped up in them, one of them ends right where.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
Like there's
subtext, and then there's just text.
I missed all of this. Wow. Yeah. You're right. You're 100% right.
Oh, man.
So anyway.
Take my badge. I'm off the course.
What are we looking at here? So this is this issue, and I think the previous issue was the stuff. They are definitely pushing the envelope here, and they know what they're doing too. They have to know.
Like I said, this is a response to Bad Girls comics. It's either Judge Dredd level satire to the point where it just kind of is the thing it's satirizing, or they are going after that market. I don't know which, but it has to be one of the two, or a secret third way, but it is definitely a response to the Bad Girls taking over the market at this time.
Right. All right. Anyway.
Listen to me.
Secret third way. Yeah. So Artemis barely escapes Sasia's mansion. Sasia wasn't there, by the way. She showed up on hologram, just kind of gloat about the fact that, hey, you're going to die. But Artemis doesn't die.
I thought this was just James Bond villain shit. I did not think about the subtext of the tentacle porn, but it is 100,000% there now that Darry has pointed it out.
It's there. So Artemis gets out. She escapes. Now, Diana, she discovers that all these accomplishments that she showed up to brag and throw into Diana's face, well, she discovers that, wow, this PR agency that Artemis was working for has been manipulating these confrontations this whole time. Yes.
It's work.
It is a work. First thing she finds out is
they hired a guy to kill somebody.
Yeah, I think that one. Yeah, I don't know if they went that.
Like they're talking to the actor. He's like, "Oh man, they like that guy because he had really killed somebody." And then he goes and kills somebody.
The chauvinist was completely fake, and I'm reading this and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it makes so much sense now." No one would call themselves the chauvinist, and this guy straight up did it because that was the role that he was supposed to play. Yes, Diana finds out that the chauvinist was an actor that was paid to get into a fight, get into a brawl, and make.
It's Simon Williams.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. Anyway, so.
Did you get it, Jesse?
It's Simon Williams from the Wonder Man. Yeah. I was about that. I was getting there. I was pulling.
I'm with you.
All right.
I want to make sure. Darry didn't get it, so I want to make sure you did.
No, anytime someone mentions Simon Williams, I disassociate.
All right.
Pretty smart on your part.
So this has all been this whole PR firm. They're supposedly this agency that's been helping Artemis has actually been funded by the White Magician. Yes, here is our big bad, the White Magician.
Which is a terrible name, by the way.
Yeah.
It sounds like he does birthday parties.
Indeed, they do.
When I was a kid, we would go to Bonanza on Tuesday nights on kids' night, right? Because kids ain't fucking free. And my parents were. I thought Bonanza was like the fucking.
Oh yeah, that's a fucking steakhouse, buddy.
The Fresh Tastics food bar. My God,
yes, sir.
I'm gonna get pudding and ice cream and meatloaf and some fries. You better watch out. I'm 9. They would have this magician come around and do stupid shit like pull a cord out of your ear or to fucking build some balloon animal or whatever, some dumb shit. That's what this guy sounds like. He is at the fucking Bonanza about to pull a bunch of ribbons out of his nose while I'm trying to eat a muffin.
He's the white magician. Listen, I've got some fond memories of sitting at a Bonanza and eating whatever I was eating, but opening up some Garbage Pail Kids I got from the mall.
Oh,
it's right here. It's right here.
They're
4th, really?
Yeah, they're about gone, man.
That's unfortunate.
Nothing gold can stay.
That's true. So anyway, Diana goes to confront Artemis and reveal all this stuff. And of course, they get into a fight. And man, do they ever get into a fight. I think finally Diana has enough of her shit and lets loose, pushes her. And there is 2 pages of Artemis flying backwards through a building, which is just great. Actually, it might even be more than one building, but it's just a fantastic way of showing this battle. But anyway.
As long as it was a building in Boston, Darry's fine with it.
Oh, yeah, he's fine.
Yeah, I don't even know that they have many tall buildings, but bringing them all down, it's fine, just to be sure.
Christ on a pony.
Finally, at the end of that issue, they decide they're going to head back to Themyscira for a few. When they go back to Themyscira, Diana confronts her mother, and Hippolyta explains that, look, I did not want you to win the contest because I had a vision of Wonder Woman dying. And that immediately prompts Diana to head back to Boston. She was the only one who went back to Themyscira.
I love it.
She's like,
you're such an idiot, Mom.
She's like, okay, well, I've got to go back and save Artemis. During this time, the white magician, who mentions throughout the series or throughout this story about how he's kind of been on the fringes of power. And at one point he explains that I can't fully dive into this power or it would overtake me. Well, he's finally decided that he's going to go over the deep end. He gets all this magical power and it starts to overtake him.
Me when I'm eating too many Reese's Cups. Oh my Lord, he comes.
He becomes this massive overgrown demon. And I think we're at this old mansion, I believe, is where he's at, or this old house.
His mansion, yeah.
And he's got Cheetah in a cage with these spikes. He's got her held captive, but they've returned from this demon dimension that they were in, and they've changed. Clearly, the white magician has changed, and also Cheetah has also become a lot more feral and maybe some demonic tendencies as well.
I think he's done that to her too.
Okay. Yeah. And now he's like, I'm going to feast on blood. And I just continues to get bigger and bigger. So Artemis is like,
I'm the blood eater.
Artemis starts investigating and ends up encountering the white magician demon. All right. Now, that's about the end of issue 99. She is in full confrontation with this demon. And in issue 100, Diana finds the white magician's abandoned home, learns of Cheetah's captivity. All the time, Artemis is facing the transformed white magician in this abandoned air hangar, I believe is what's going on there. They're tussling there. She's unloading arrows into him left and right. So at a loss, Diana ends up reuniting with her. She goes and visits her friend in the hospital. And this is strange. There's probably, again, this is because there had to have been a lot more story that happened before this. And you guys, I can't remember her name, but there's a lawyer friend that's there. And Diana says, look, I have
this is wild. This is completely, I had to read this twice.
Same here.
This can't be happening the way it's being outlined.
She shows up in the hospital room. She's meeting up with all her friends, and she ends up disclosing, or at least kind of pointing the finger at one of her lawyer friends, and is like, "Look, I know that you're Circe." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" This is very basic interpretation.
What the hell are you talking about? I am not a witch goddess. Thank you very much. I do not know Odysseus.
And I was tempted to do that to Dean. I was tempted to start this out and be like, I know you're Circe. And you just need to come to be comfortable with yourself admitting that.
Brother, I'm Hermes.
All right. Okay. So yeah, she's like, hey, I know you're Cersei. And of course her friend is like, what are you talking about? I'm certainly not that. And she's like, well, no, it makes sense. And she starts to talk about how Cersei wanted to become close to Wonder Woman in order to betray her, or at least keep an eye on her enemy, something along those lines. And then what ends up happening is that she loses track of herself and actually starts to believe that she's this lawyer friend. And
because she finds this life cool.
Yeah. It finds that being accepted and actually making friends is actually something she enjoys. So even though she's denying it, she says, no. Diana asks her, you need to send me to find Artemis right now. And she's like, I will not do that. You just need to go away from here. And boom, Diana disappears. It looks like she is Cersei after all. Diana is immediately teleported to aid Artemis in this massive fight. The battle intensifies as Artemis and Diana face Cheetah, who's been turned, the White Magician's wife, which I can't remember her name, but she's also part of things. Both of these ladies have been transformed into demons.
He's his wife. I think she's just a local anchor woman that he's.
Oh, I thought it was his wife. I thought he married her. Okay, well, either way,
maybe. I didn't think that, but it's not an important detail for the purpose of this story. But I bet it means a lot to them.
Yes, it does. Yeah, Diana receives some encouragement from a vision during this battle. Again, I think she kind of leaves herself or goes unconscious or whatever and sees the vision of Diana Trevor spurring her to continue the fight. She awakens and Artemis is mortally wounded. Diana begins to relentlessly attack the White Magician after Artemis gives her the Gauntlet of Atlas and says, go to town on this guy, kick his ass. Finally, she defeats the White Magician, the demon White Magician, and comforts Artemis in her final moments, promising to honor.
Until Darry gets Artemis Requiem.
I'm telling you, man, it's the hot new book of 1996.
So Diana says, I will honor your legacy. We have reached the end. Artemis apparently died at the hands of the White Magician demon guy. Diana, who I assume Artemis says, take back your costume. It's yours now. And so
shouldn't they have to have a new contest though? This seems unfair.
Not one to say. Yeah. Not one to say.
You know what? Maybe it's insensitive to bring it up since Artemis just passed away.
She did. She just died. How dare you?
Diana came in second, right? So it's
so you can make that argument. Yeah,
you could make the argument that, well, unfortunately she passed away, but it was very obvious Diana was going to win anyway. So
I'll go ahead and give my final thoughts on this. As far as the book goes, and there's a few things that kind of definitely stand out to me. Number one, I've already talked about the art. It's great. The way this thing wraps up is, I didn't expect her to die either. That I was thinking, well, Artemis, she'll
get the U.S. agent treatment.
Exactly. I thought she was going to go off and she would end up giving Wonder Woman back her costume and here's your lasso and I've got some stuff to work out. Let me go ahead and do that before I could actually consider even carrying the moniker of Wonder Woman. That did not happen.
I know what you meant, but I really like the idea that there's a version of this story where Artemis joined the West Coast Avengers. She just shows up in Malibu.
And they switch costumes?
Yeah, exactly.
Now she's got on the biker jacket and everything?
Exactly. Yeah. She shows up.
And if she joins the Avengers, they'll have their own jackets. And they can have an argument about it because everybody had jackets in the 90s, including the guy at Madison Square Garden.
Oh, he did.
Who he had a knife, he had that jacket there, that's how he snuck it in. He's a really crafty guy. Maybe Artemis should have stopped him.
There you go. Yeah. Well, she was in New York. She was in New York.
She could have stopped his rampage, but she was busy with the Chauvinists, busy getting worked by the fucking PR agency ran by apparently Vince McMahon. That's
too soon.
Oh, shoot. Well, yeah, I do like the fact that we do finally get a little bit of resolution. Hippolyta and Diana actually say, okay, look, she comes clean. Look, this is what I did. Although, again, what a stupid thing to do. Do you not realize that you're just killing somebody else in my stead?
Right. You think I would be okay with that?
Right.
And why are you on some level as well? I get she's Hippolyta's her mom or whatever. You're the queen of your people as well. Why don't you bring Wonder Woman in and, I don't know, talk to some of these gods you know or figure something out about this? Well, guess somebody's got to die.
Right. And what a way to go, too. Artemis gets wrapped in the lasso and just bounced off the wall. This thing is just taking her and slamming her up against the wall left and right. And it's rough. She definitely goes through some shit. So anyway, Darry, I'm turning it over to you, man. What's your thoughts here?
Wonder Woman, the contest, it's a product of its time. The art is very good, but it's clearly a good artist, and Dean said this before, trying to capture the moment, right? Trying to sell to the market. So it's really interesting. Like I said before, I had not read this back in the day. I hadn't read this in the intervening years, but reading it now with an appreciation of it, it takes you right back. If you have any fondness for that period of time, I could definitely recommend it. The other thing I'll say is, you get a complete story. A lot of times books of this era, especially with art like this, doesn't hold together or whatnot. But Dean's description before of this being a JRPG is perfect, right? Wonder Woman, the contest, is the JRPG you never got. And you do get a complete story. It goes into some weird tangents. That's the nature of serialized storytelling. You get a full story. And I can understand why this is one people come back to. Is she wearing bike shorts? She is wearing bike shorts. But there's a reason, right? Bill Loebs does his best and making sure that you understand, like, this is a complex generational story that involves everything from a version of Heracles that looks exactly like Conan the Barbarian to a betrayed and confused queen of her people, and Poison Ivy, who, again, I think we're all fans of. So I had never read this, but I really enjoyed it. And I would say if you have the chance, you should check it out.
I also kind of want to throw in here, we kind of learn also about the final act that happened with Antiope and Hippolyta, and about how she kind of went off and said, hey, I need you to lead these people, and I don't want them to know it was me that took the mask and tricked all his people into leaving. So
Antiope's like, that's not what I do. I don't build civilizations.
Right. And she goes off. And so I don't know what she was. Again, this is something, reading this for the first time and reading Wonder Woman for these most successive issues that I've ever read. I assume Antiope was labeled a villain through most of that. She come up in a lot of the previous issues, Dean?
I cannot recall off the top of my head. I'm sure because she's a mythological figure.
She makes it sound like she definitely was something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure she was there. I honestly remember reading the George Perez stuff, but mostly I just remember the art. I need to read it again.
Okay. All right.
I'm sure she was around.
What's your thoughts on the wrap up of this story, Dean?
All right. Well, first off, issue number 100 has a special cover, which it says it's Prism. I think it says Fall of an Amazon on black. The letters are in Prism. That was actually part of a thing that DC was doing all across the board. Flash number 100 is, I think, The Quick and the Dead, and it looks the same. I forget what Green Arrow number 100 says, but it's the same motif. They also put out posters for all three books, and they were DC Centennial editions. And if you look on that cover, there's a little thing that says DC 100. And so I thought it was really fucking cool for DC to celebrate the 100th issue of these books, because they were trying to show that these are all books that restarted around after the crisis. And I really think that look at how far we've come since that seminal moment. I really like the interaction between Diana and her mom and learning the whole story. Again, like I said earlier, it's just an example where you're like, oh man, my parents just aren't who I thought they were. And it's a hard lesson to learn that they did some things that you find questionable. And she's learning on the go and doing her best to protect Artemis. I love the relationship between Artemis and Diana and how they become friends. And I like it especially because Artemis is like, I'm sorry, I was full of myself as she's dying. And Diana's like, nah, I like you because you were arrogant. And we kind of all have a friend like that who's a little arrogant, but we like them because of who they are. For us, it's Darry. But for other people, it's different people.
I'm okay with this.
No, I'm just kidding.
I accept it.
Great guy. But for real, it seems most groups have someone like that, and it was neat that she's like, no, that's one of the things I like about you. It's more than a shame that everything about this is just pushed aside for issue 101, and John Byrne does his stuff, because you're really interested to see what would happen next with the supporting cast. The fight scenes are terrific. I think the last issue's a little thin, but it's not too bad or anything. To try to double size it would probably really need to be more like 1.5 sized, but I get where it's going. I get where they're coming from. It's a great way to wrap up the final parts of this era of Wonder Woman. Then you could go on and read Artemis Requiem, which William Messner-Loebs also wrote. It's hard not to recommend this whole thing. I'd give it a 90 out of 100.
I enjoyed myself. I actually did. I think a lot of what kept me from reading Wonder Woman comics is just because it's like, man, first off, Greek mythology. Oh, geez. What the fuck? You know.
Are you adverse to Thor comics for the same reason?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, I am.
It's weird that these microcosms of these gigantic universes that span from street level heroes like Batman and Punisher to cosmic gods like the Celestials and the New Gods, and you're like, I can't be memorizing shit about Zeus.
Don't put me. I don't want to do any of that.
You're like, what are you Odin? Fuck
Who?
That guy.
No.
Speaking of a neat bit of mythology, though, and I don't mean to go on, in JLA Avengers, Wonder Woman and Hercules meet. And so in the mythology, Hercules, Heracles, not very great to Hippolyta. Nope. But in the Marvel universe, it's consensual because Hercules is a good guy. So they've changed that. And Wonder Woman's like, you raped my mom. And he's like, no, he was all good. What are you talking about?
So after this, it's just taking a quick look just to see where Bill Loebs goes. And it looks like he's doing Hawkman. He's been doing Hawkman for quite a while at this point, but he just continues to stay on Hawkman for a little bit. And then he's over at Marvel with Cutting Edge #1 in 1995. Sound familiar at all? Cutting Edge?
I think it's one of those stories under the Edge imprint. They had Over the Edge, and remember when Punisher killed Nick Fury, and then Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, Daredevil, Hulk, and Punisher were all under that Edge.
Right.
I think it has something to do with that, if memory serves.
All right. Well, hey, we did it. We talked the Artemis Saga right here. Wonder Woman, the Artemis Saga. What a fun conversation this was. Got a nice, real good deep dive. A lot of great rabbit holes we went down. So let's close up shop here. Dean Compton, tell them all about the Unspoken Decade.
The Unspoken Decade is a fantastic website. I've heard this. Check it out one day myself, theunspokenDecade.com. I hear it's a great website about 90s comics. I hear it has a great Facebook group page where people are participating all the time. 11,000 likes, 16,000 followers. So I've heard this stuff. So check it out for yourself, theunspokenDecade.com. I heard they're celebrating a 10-year anniversary this year. Look for them on Facebook and verify that for yourself because I don't want to spread misinformation.
That's right. Good job. Look, I'll plug one thing here, and that is, as we record this, it's just a couple days before Valentine's Day. When you hear this, I'm sure that our Valentine's Day episode will be in the archive. It'll be me. It'll be Dean Compton, and it will be Emily Scott discussing the Marvel Valentine's Special, I believe is what it's called. Yeah. 94? What was that? 94? 97. Not from 1997. Had a lot of great discussion there. A lot of fun little stories. We go from, was it My Fair Lady, Spider-Man? And then immediately shortly after that, we go into a domestic abuse discussion with Daredevil. It was
Venus. We get an Archie humor comic with Venus, and the X-Men do stuff, and the villains make out as well. You get a Absorbing Man Titania story.
It's good.
For those of you who like your Love on the Run.
Oh, that's
fans
perfect.
Of the Steve Miller Band, take the money and run. This is the Marvel romance story for you.
Take the Millie model doll and run.
Take the Millie model doll and run.
All right. Yeah, check that out. That's going to be in the archive. All right, we're getting out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. That right there is Dean Compton. Over there is Darry Waite. I'm Jesse Starcher. Thank you very much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.